I do believe the registry has merits. I'll make some comments on that. We heard from Mr. Stanton, who was the CSIS director, a managing director former, but they are also limited as it cannot target the proxies. I proactively reached out to CSIS after the election, and I told them, I said, hey, I need your help. I want to know a little bit more about these issues that have been coming up. And they also said that the registry doesn't have much teeth, and it doesn't address the issue of the proxy. So instead, Mr. Stanton recommended Parliament focus more on the Security of Information Act as the best way to tackle foreign interference, and this has been a focus of mine during my time as an MP. I also collaborated with MP Dollywall to draft the M112 motion to combat foreign intimidation on diaspora communities, and that was unanimously recently passed in the House of Commons. Rather than simply imposing a reactionary tool to address foreign interference and expecting it to fix the problem, Bill C-70 to modernize Canada's security establishment has also been put forward, and I'll be speaking on that as well. It will more actively pursue foreign actors bent on causing harm to Canadians. We're dealing with misinformation and disinformation. It's information, and the focus should be on the security of information. My former opponent also claims I was engaging in misinformation by misleading voters that the Conservative Party would eliminate the assault rifle ban if elected, but this was not misinformation. This was actually a CPC party platform. At the same time, Mr. Chu was actively spreading misinformation, disseminating actual flyers. I never spoke about Mr. Chu, like I mentioned earlier, throughout the whole campaign. I never said his name once. I didn't talk about him. I didn't have to. He actually was handing out flyers saying I was going to legalize hard drugs in Richmond. Neither of these were 2021 LPC platform, and neither are the law of the land today. Rather, it's Mr. Brock and the CPC who have been sitting on their hands while claims of foreign interference run rife in the Conservative Party. And I think I've raised some of these issues before as well. Mr. Brock frequently made references to former leader O'Toole's claims that up to 8 ridings were affected by foreign interference in the 2021 election. But Mr. Brock doesn't seem to take Mr. O'Toole's recent claims of interference by the government in China contributing to him being ousted as a leader of the Conservative Party. Mr. O'Toole even purports that CBC member and former member of the CPC National Council, Bert Chen, who was suspended from the party's National Council after launching the petition to recall O'Toole as a leader, was involved. It gets worse. More than 100 Iranian Canadians sent a letter to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre on Tuesday calling for an investigation of the party's handling of allegations.
Mr. Baines.
Order, Chair.
Can I just...
Point of order, Chair.
Okay, we're going to go on your point of order, and then I'm going to come back to Mr. Baines. So go ahead.
So in the meandering offering of Mr. Baines, he's talking about things that have actually occurred since the meeting where he claims that the offense against his privilege was taken. So this is.
I believe it's all relevant.
Well, very much, and I'm sure he believes it's relevant. But Chair,
I'm not sure which. Specifically, which point of order he's referring to from the standing orders, Chair.
Relevance is the first thing, Chair.
On a question of privilege, Chair.
So, Ms. Khalid, can you hang on, please? Go ahead, Mr. Barrett. I think I've got your point, and I actually got on the microphone almost at the same time that you did.
The Speaker of the House, Chair, has also, in practice, limited the length of time for questions of privilege raised in the chamber. And having done that, the scope that members offering their points has to be very tight, or speakers, the deputy speaker, and the assistant deputy speakers have sat members down when they've turned into
I've got that point, Mr. Barrett, and
I'll tighten it up,
Mr. Baines. I was going to make this point that your question of privilege needs to relate to the issue of you feeling like your privilege has been breached.
I am just giving a comparison here.
That's fine,
Yeah.
but in relation to what you're talking about, then it has to be germane to that.
Okay.
What I'm not looking for in making my ruling of whether your privilege or whether I think your privilege has been breached is to relitigate the issues
Noted.
that have been before this committee in the past. And I will remind you, sir, that Mr. Chu's testimony is a matter of privilege. He's covered by parliamentary privilege in this room. So I'm going to ask you to keep it succinct as it relates to you feeling like your privilege has been breached, not to relitigate or debate what's happened either in the past or in this committee with witnesses. So please go ahead, sir. If you can be succinct and wrap it up, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will. I'm almost there. So as I indicated, I was just showing a comparison of some of the points that have been raised here, and are chosen to be viewed differently if it's one side of the equation here versus the other. So I just was raising some of those issues as a comparison to really shed light on, what takes place here and how I am feeling. So I just feel neither Mr. Brock nor any of the other CPC MPs seem to treat these claims with certainty.
Point of order, Chair.
Go ahead again on your point of order.
Again, with respect to your ruling, Chair, requesting that the member be succinct and speak exactly to how his privileges were breached. What he's offering is opinion on perceptions of members of another party about issues in the news. I fail to see how what I think about something or how I treat something, like, for example, foreign interference, how that has anything to do with his claims that another member of this committee or that his privileges were breached. If he has a specific allegation with
Mr. Brock made accusations against me. I'm
Chair,
speaking to that.
I'm not asking for cross discussion here, please.
If the member has something specific that relates to his privilege being breached, he should cite the event, cite the evidence, and then the chair needs to make a ruling. But what this is, Chair, this is gratuitous at best.
So, Mr. Baines, Mr. Barrett does bring up a good point. We are all experienced members of Parliament. We have seen questions of privileges being raised in the House of Commons. In fact, I have raised several questions of privileges in my experience as a House leader. Most of those, many of those, all of those questions of privileges are related to how the privileges of members have been breached. There's very specific references to not just the historical context, but also under the Green Book, how those privileges have been breached. Never have I stood in the House on a question of privilege and litigated what's gone on, either at this committee or what's been the subject of news sources outside of this committee. So I am going to ask you to
I will conclude.
To conclude. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Baines. So Mr. Baines has concluded his discussion.
No. I will give you a conclusion here.
My misunderstanding. But I'm going to ask you to wrap it up real quick.
I'll wrap it up.
And if there's another intervention, then by myself, then
I'll speak to. So I believe I've already made several references to the allegations made by Mr. Brock. So to conclude, Mr. Brock's motion is clearly designed as a personal threat. It's intended to inflict reputational damage, intimidate me using false or unverifiable information, designed to impede me in my role as a member of the House of Commons, making statements against members without evidence or making false allegations is a matter of serious concern for all members, and I look forward to your ruling, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so thank you for raising that question of privilege, Mr. Baines. The chair does take serious. I do see your hand, Mr. Couric. On the question of privilege, do you have anything to add in relation to this question of privilege? I'm going to remind members that I'm not interested in debate.
On the point of order.
On a point of order. Go ahead, Mr. Couric.
Sorry, Chair. I am before entering into discussion. I believe that within the framework of privilege discussions at committee, I would ask for clarity from you, and if you need to take time to discuss with the clerk, I respect that absolutely. But on a point of order, just so that we can understand what the framework for which a discussion continuing would or would not look like, and whether we would expect a ruling from you, whether or not there is a motion forthcoming. Noted that Mr. Baines has given up the floor without having moved a motion, and I believe I'm next on the speaking list. So I would just ask for clarity, Chair, on a point of order before we proceed with the question.
Point of order, Chair.
No debate.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Couric. I have heard the information that's been provided by Mr. Baines. I will advise the committee that the chair takes very seriously these issues of question of privilege. Similarly to what the Speaker of the House has done, I will take the information. I am going to go back and discuss this with the clerk and come back with a later ruling. So that's what I'm prepared to do at this point. Okay, so thank you for raising that, Mr. Baines. So,
Sorry, just seeking clarification, Chair.
Yep.
What does that mean?
It means I'm going to come back with a ruling on the question of privilege once I look at all of the information that's been presented by Mr. Baines, other information as it relates to what's in the book, and some of the discussion that went on in the past.
You mean in a few minutes?
He has to come back now.
But then, when you come back, it's not you in here who has the privilege, just to see if you will that.
And so just for clarity as well, that it's not me that is going to determine whether there's a question of privilege here.